You think Dak Prescott is the best quarterback in not the NFC East, in the NFC?
In the NFC, I do.
Really? And really, from what you've seen, are we talking regular season or are we talking playoffs? Do the playoffs count in this conversation?
I'm just talking period. I think Dak Prescott's number one.
Oh,
Insanity.
great look, rough take. Before I come to you, Damien, as the new voice of reason. So here's what happened. So I asked best quarterback in the NFC, and then I pushed back and I said, well, which quarterback would you trust the most game on the line Super Bowl? And they said I changed the question, but I actually think to be the best quarterback, you need to be both. But I digress. Who's the best quarterback in the NFC?
Well, I don't think it's controversial what Harry said. Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott.
Look at God. Won't he do it? He might not come when you want him to, but he will always be on time, Molly.
That's what you came here for?
Let me ask you this question, Molly. So are we going to dismiss Dak Prescott, what he did in the regular season last year? I know everything we talk about with Dak is related to the postseason, and I get that. But
I'm wondering, when you played for Bill Belichick in New England with Tom Brady and you played with those incredible defenses, is that why you guys talked about regular season? Is that what mattered for you? Like, let's be the best in the regular. I'm just curious. Is that what you talked about in Foxborough?
They all count.
That was much of the chatter, right? Regular season.
They all count.
You didn't care about rings.
They all count.
Yeah.
Like.
It's hilarious to keep using last season as a reference point when I feel like we've already beat this horse so dead that it's unbelievable. He's just a powder now. Dak Prescott only played good, and the Dallas Cowboys as a whole only played good against the bad teams last season. They just feasted on bad teams. So can we stop with this nonsense? I feel like we're just in a broken simulation at this point. I mean, I just don't understand how we can keep repeating this nonsense. Well, last season, look how good he played. Against awful teams, and then any team that was actually good, he played awful. He did not play good at all. So just stop with this already. It's just absurd. And then to get completely embarrassed in the playoffs is a further indictment of all of that. It's just getting so ridiculous. I just like don't understand how the media can keep repeating this nonsense again and again and again.
Like Bill Parcells just said, you see that scoreboard? You see that scoreboard?
Alone on an island. I'm good with it.
No, but listen, I will say this though.
Yeah.
Now, if we're gonna pose a question like, who do you want? Like, if it's on the line in the NFC, give me Matt Stafford. Give me Matt Stafford. Like, of any quarterback in the NFC, if I'm going to a big game and I need that one win, give me Matt Stafford. I'll take Matt Stafford.
Yeah, you take his Super Bowl run alone. You look at the three games that they played in the three opponents. Matthew Stafford, had to come back and win those games. You look at the Super Bowl versus the Cincinnati Bengals, the cover zero that Todd Bowles and company decided that they want to run the game in Tampa, where he found Cooper Kupp for the big one. He was able to get it done in that one as well. So Matthew Stafford is the only guy that has a Super Bowl ring right now in the NFC. Yeah. And you talk about starting quarterback. So if the game is on the line and we're talking about that separate setting.
I want to let Courtney go because I got another question for you. A new thought experiment I'd like to pose.
I'd say.
We don't need to hear what Courtney has to say. We'll just take it from here. Guys, what an insane statement to make. If I have the game on the line and I need one quarterback, who would I pick? Matthew Stafford. But then also I'm saying that Matthew Stafford isn't the best quarterback in the NFC. Please, how does that make sense? That again, this is just further nonsense, further just insanity. Okay, Matthew Stafford is the best quarterback in the NFC, not a doubt in my mind. People just don't realize how amazing and how elite he is because he was left to just be in quicksand in the Detroit Lions for all those years. He just was, and when he finally got together with a legitimate franchise, a legitimate head coach, the head coach that he deserved, in Sean McVay, instant success. It's a shame he got there a little late in his career, and so now he's older, which is understandable, but instant success. What does that tell you? Situations matter. Situations matter. If Patrick Mahomes was the Detroit Lions during 2009 onward, whatever it was, 09 to 2016 or whatever, he was not winning any Super Bowls either. So it's just insane. And what Matthew Stafford did that Super Bowl run was unbelievable, unreal. Matthew Stafford is an elite talent. He is an elite quarterback. There is not a single thing that Dak Prescott does better than him. There's not a single thing. Not a single thing. And it's just kind of comical. And if we want to now bring other quarterbacks into the mix, because I do believe that Matthew Stafford, if you had to have a one quarterback to win one game, you would absolutely pick Stafford. And if you were just going to build the season, the game, a career all over, and you were drafting all these quarterbacks from day one, rookie year, I would still pick Matthew Stafford. Jordan Love has the potential, but Jordan Love's going to be, and I'm going to talk about it. It's the hardest one because we only have the 1 year to go off of. It's just interesting because I get the argument. You could make an argument that Dak Prescott is better than Jordan Love because, like I just said, Jordan Love has only 1 year. So it's a little bit easier for you to say, no, come on, man, look what Dak's done for years. I get that. You can even make the argument that Dak Prescott is better than Jalen Hurts because you could be like, again, Jalen Hurts has been inconsistent, and look what Dak has consistently done for years. Okay, I could see that argument. You could say Brock Purdy. You can continue to make the argument Brock Purdy just benefits from Shanahan and all the weapons and Christian McCaffrey and Debo, Ayuk. Like, again, those are all arguments that I'm not saying I necessarily believe in, but I get the arguments, right? Like you can understand the justification. It's indefensible to me to say that that Dak Prescott is better than Matthew Stafford. It's just indefensible to me. It does not hold up to scrutiny, and it makes fundamentally zero sense. Especially when you're talking about come time playoffs, the way how Matthew Stafford steps up and the moment is not too big. He knows exactly what needs to be done in every single moment of the game. When it comes to Dak Prescott in the playoffs, it looks like he doesn't know what to do in any moment in the game. The literal polar opposite. And like you're going to pick him over Stafford, it just makes no sense. And when you now have like a Jordan Love has already done something that Dak Prescott has like never done. Show insane confidence against a seemingly good team on the road and ball out and be in complete command of a playoff game. That's what Jordan Love did. Something that Dak Prescott has just not done. And don't give me some of these random games where he put up numbers or won against a team that was clearly not good. Like, again, I think the one game that I keep referencing is like the Seattle Seahawks the 1 year. It's like, okay, congratulations. He looks lost once he plays a team like the 49ers. So yeah, that's an indictment on Dak. And then you have someone like Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, absolutely, I understand it was the one playoff run, but he absolutely balled out in the Super Bowl, the biggest game in all of sports, and he absolutely balled out against an elite Kansas City Chiefs team. Okay, and he balled out, and he did not just benefit from Shane Steichen and the offensive weapons. He did not just do the tush push all day. Jalen Hurts put the Eagles on his back. Go watch those highlights. He was making something out of nothing, drive after drive after drive. He is the reason why the Eagles were even in that game, okay? He was not being bailed out by the team. In fact, the one time that he needed to be bailed out, they couldn't bail him out, and that was with the fumble. And again, people always want to point to that as to be like, aha, he lost them the game. Told you he wasn't that good. Again, I will always have to use this example. Patrick Mahomes has 5 interceptions in 4 Super Bowls. Quarterbacks turn the ball over. It just happens. It's not a reason to say, told you they're not good. That's why they lost the game. So, yeah. And then you could have Brock Purdy. Again, I understand that Brock Purdy is on a great team with a great roster with an elite head coach. I get that. It doesn't take away the fact that Brock Purdy executes that offense flawlessly. He executes the offense flawlessly. Look what Dak Prescott did against the Packers. Did he execute that offense flawlessly? The answer is no. I don't care what the Cowboys did on defense. The Cowboys had nothing going on offense. They had no idea what they were doing. They looked lost and shook, and Dak was a big part of that. And now, before you Cowboys fans come at me and say that I'm just being a Dak Prescott hater, I literally made a video the other day talking about how I would pay Dak Prescott if I was the Cowboys. And I defended him immensely. Okay? I defended him immensely. But it doesn't mean that we can now just say that he's the best quarterback in the NFL, in the NFC. It just doesn't hold up. It makes zero sense. You could say that he's arguably the most consistent quarterback, although, Brock Purdy will give him a run for his money. But again, Brock Purdy has a shorter track record. He hasn't even played 2 full seasons. But you can make the argument that Dak is the most consistent, right? His floor isn't as low as, say, a Jalen Hurts, but his ceiling isn't as high as a Jalen Hurts. You know, Matthew Stafford's ceiling is through the roof relative to Dak, but Matthew Stafford is a gunslinger, and so he can throw a lot of interceptions. He can kind of get fast and loose with the ball. Dak doesn't do that. Dak can kind of take care of the ball a little bit better. But you don't feel like Dak can win you the game when you really need it, right? So you can trust Dak is going to be consistent, and he's not going to necessarily lose you the game, right? I think Brock Purdy can potentially put you in a situation. I'll take Brock Purdy out of that because I think actually Brock Purdy and Dak can be a little bit similar in that regard. But I think Matthew Stafford can lose you the game, and Jalen Hurts can lose you the game. And I'm trying to think if there's anyone else there. And probably Jordan Love, in a way, will probably prove to be this way as well, can lose you the game. But they are also truly set up to absolutely positively win you that game, right? When their team is down, when they're down by 14 and they need to have some big magical moments, Stafford can step up. Jalen Hurts can step up. These are two quarterbacks that clearly proved to do it again in the highest level at the most important time. And Jordan Love, I believe, again, there's a little bit more speculation with that, but I think Jordan Love will prove to be that as well. I think Jordan Love has arrived and will be an elite top quarterback in the NFL. Dak does not have that. And again, Brock Purdy, I think what Brock Purdy does, what makes Brock Purdy such a great quarterback, is not necessarily his ability to put a team on his back, but it's to execute an offense flawlessly and not lose you those games. If I said that I think Brock Purdy can lose you a game, then I misspoke because I didn't mean to say that. And I don't think that necessarily Dak causes anyone to lose the game, but he's not enough to really push you over to win you those games. But again, that's why I put, and I'm not saying that Brock Purdy isn't maybe not necessarily as good as some of these other quarterbacks, but again, I think what Brock Purdy's strongest points are is that he consistently puts his team in a position to win and then execute the offense flawlessly, which is not something that all even great quarterbacks can do. Matthew Stafford might not execute an offense flawlessly or as consistently as, say, a Brock Purdy, but I believe that Matthew Stafford can do more than, say, a Brock Purdy. So it's an interesting kind of push and pull, right? I do think like a Brock Purdy is more dependent on his team and around him because of his, some of the limitations that he may have. But again, I'm on the record saying this. That doesn't mean that takes away from Brock Purdy. Sometimes a quarterback can be absolutely elite and thrive, but they are just more dependent upon their situation. And again, that doesn't mean that makes them better or worse. I think you can make the argument that Josh Allen is way more resilient to a situation than, say, a Brock Purdy. But you could also make the argument that Brock Purdy is more capable of executing an offense more consistently than, say, Josh Allen. So it's an interesting back and forth in that regard. And I think that's where someone like a Dak kind of falls. I think Dak and Purdy can be very similar in that regard. But with that said, it's very clear to me that Brock Purdy even has a leg up on Dak Prescott in terms of this idea of executing an offense more flawlessly. I do not believe if Dak Prescott was the quarterback with, say, the Rams when they won, they were going to win the Super Bowl. If you put Dak Prescott on the 49ers, I don't think they win the Super Bowl. I think maybe if you put Dak on, and I may have said this before, or I said the opposite, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think maybe if you put Dak on the 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo, instead of Jimmy Garoppolo, you put Dak, they could win the Super Bowl. But if you put Dak, because I think this is actually a good thought experiment. If you put Dak on the Eagles in 22, do they win the Super Bowl? Absolutely not. No, I don't think that's even close, right? If you put Dak on, right, let's see, the Chiefs versus the Tampa Bay, they don't win. If you put Dak on the Tampa Bay team versus the Chiefs, they don't win. I'm trying to think if there's like any team that has won the Super Bowl or has been in the Super Bowl where if you put Dak on that team, they win. If you put Dak on the Bengals, they lose. If you put Dak on any of the Patriots teams, they lose. If you put Dak on the Falcons against the Patriots, they lose. The Seattle Seahawks, maybe if you put them back with when Russ won, you could maybe make the argument, but for the most part, there's just not a team that I'm seeing that you put Dak on that they lose or that they end up winning. I just don't see it. I really, really don't. And to me, that's more telling. Now, you can't necessarily say that about Dak Prescott or about some of these other quarterbacks. I think if you put Jalen Hurts on some of these other teams, they win the Super Bowl. Or if you put Brock Purdy on, I think if you put Brock Purdy on 2019 instead of Jimmy Garoppolo, the 49ers win that Super Bowl, right? Like, I think, like, again, it can sound like kind of like an absurd hypothetical, but I think that paints a clearer picture of who a quarterback is. And of course, some of you guys will be like, that's a dumb thing. You can't know that for sure. Obviously, right? Welcome to sports talk. That's just that's the nature of the game. But that's honestly just the way I see it. This is actually a little bit more entertaining of a question. Some of these questions sometimes make my head want to spin, but it is kind of interesting to kind of like actually think about, like, who do you really want as your quarterback? If you could pick between, Dak, Jalen, Stafford, Purdy, Love, like it's definitely pretty interesting to me. But yeah, I'm not picking Dak. I'm not angry if I have Dak. But if I want any true chance at winning a Super Bowl, out of all those quarterbacks, Dak is not at the top of the list until proven otherwise. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think Dak Prescott is indeed the best quarterback in the NFC? And would you trust him more than any of these other quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.